All right, bang. Today is Tuesday. It is September 13th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. It's Eddie. It's Chief. Chief, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm back. Football's back. I'm dry now, finally. Feeling good.
Nice. Socks are warm. Socks are dried up.
Took a while.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Good. Well, I'm glad you're doing well.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
Happy to hear that.
I'm
Even though you didn't say it, I could see it on your face.
I don't know. I had a tough start to my Saturday. Jackassed my beard.
What do you mean?
You remember the old Jackass sketch where they'd go up behind the guy with the clipper?
Yeah.
Like I was just trying to do a little trim.
Clean up.
And I took out a line, and I was like, fuck. So
that's because then
so short.
You can never even it out.
Yes, exactly.
So you have to just
gotta
be
go
like
fat face and just gotta do it.
Grows back.
Yeah, it grows back. But so that was a tough start to my weekend.
You know, I didn't notice when I saw you on Sunday.
Now you see it.
So I still don't really can't really tell the difference, but maybe a little bit. But it is like that's one of those things where you just overthink forever.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, oh fuck.
Yeah. But I know one thing neither of us overthink, and that's our choice in beer. Is that
it's Miller Lite every single time. That was a nice thing about Soldier Field is just walking in and whatever concession stand, whatever beer guy comes by, you're going to get the beer that you want, that we want. Bears and Miller Lite, they just go together, and it's perfect.
It's so nice. Like, it's the worst having to go somewhere and begrudgingly have to try a different beer because they don't have it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the worst. So it's awesome that Soldier Field, in the midst of all the downpour, we were able to enjoy some great tasting, less filling Miller Lite. And Miller Lite is for the beer people who actually want to taste their beer, because light beer should taste like beer, not like water.
Yeah, and it has that great taste while only being 96 calories. So it literally has the best of both worlds. And if you want to find it delivery, you can just go to MillerLite.com and what are we doing? /Redline, and they'll have all the delivery options near you. And but it's in every store. Any store that sells beer, you just walk in, you grab it. I'm looking forward to just leaving it outside.
Yes.
Clearing out some fridge space. I love that.
I know.
Yeah.
I know you do, you sicko.
Yeah.
I like the warmth, but regardless if it's cold, warm, if the beer is always cold, but if the weather is cold or warm, a Miller Lite is always great.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. All right, Chief. What are we doing today?
So this was a request because there's been this guy. I want to make sure I shout him out properly, because he's been tweeting me and DMing me to do the USS Indianapolis, I should say.
Ooh.
Forever. Like I'm saying, maybe over years. Shout out to our guy Ben, loyal listener. And so this one's for you. We were kind of looking around for topics, and this has been a story I think most people will be familiar with, at least on a pop culture level, even if they don't know it.
Okay.
So do you have an inkling on this?
USS Indianapolis, you said?
USS Indianapolis. You ever seen the movie Jaws?
Fuck yeah, I have.
Okay. So you know the scene when they're in the boat, the three of them are out in the boat, and they're like comparing scars and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, how'd you get this one? How'd you get that one? And like Chief Brody's just sitting there like, fuck, I'm such a little pussy. And then Quint, he might be, if we're going to do a draft of all-time movie characters, which maybe we should do at some point.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
It's weird. Ones like that are just so blatantly on the table that you just kind of overlook.
Overthink.
Yeah.
He's in my first round. Quint from Jaws. Mm-hmm. And he's like, they're all laughing, joking, drinking. And then he talks about one scar that he got because he was a survivor of the USS Indianapolis sinking. And he tells this story. It's a very powerful scene where he's like, the sharks come darting for you. And, he's like, talks about their eyes, and they got like these black, expressionless doll eyes until they bite you. Then they roll over white, with energy. And it's like, holy shit. And it's like a very memorable scene. It's a very memorable story. But like that whole clip where he's talking about it lasts about 3 minutes. And while the shark story is horrifying, it doesn't even begin to tell the tale of the absolute nightmare fuel that that ordeal must have been. Like, horrible. So I feel like, remember when we did the oh my God. Shackleton. Thank you. And that story about.
I like that. I'm reading your mind.
Yeah. And it was like these guys survived this like unbelievable ordeal.
Expedition, yeah.
And they're, sailing on this little rickety boat from Antarctica to some fucking island in the middle of the South Atlantic and the roughest oceans in the world. And, they're trapped in the ice for a year. This sounds to me, I think I would rather be down there for a fucking year in the dark of Antarctica, dark and cold of Antarctica with those guys than what these guys went through in 3 days. That's how bad it is.
I'm honestly scared to listen because I've talked about this on the Worst Way to Die's podcast. This is my number one. And I don't know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Yep.
My number one is just being lost at sea in the pitch black.
Yeah. We'll get into it.
Oh, fuck.
You're going to hate it. You're going to hate it.
Also, we should say before we really get into it, you're back on Thursday with Dante. We watched Running with the Devil, The Wild World of John McAfee on Netflix.
Yeah.
Very worthy of your time. It's about an hour and 40 minutes. Also, you don't really need to watch it though. Like we kind of explain it and give it, and we just talk about other shit. So,
but I think that
but you'll enjoy it more if you watch it.
It's a very good documentary. Yeah.
I just don't want to deter people from listening if they don't watch the doc.
Sure.
So we need to figure out that sweet spot.
So if you watch it, great. If not, maybe you listen to us and decide whether or not you want to watch it. But it's a fascinating story. Obviously, like we've talked about him, I think a couple times now.
Yeah, like the behind the scenes footage that is in this Netflix doc is like crazy. So look out for that.
He is one of those guys where you just look in his eyes and you're like, well, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Some people just have crazy person eyes, and he is one of them. Yeah, he's got crazy guy eyes.
John McAfee.
Yep.
All right.
So this is World War II, obviously, the USS Indianapolis. So
I'm scared.
You should you're gonna hate this. You're gonna hate it. Okay. No. I want you to do like a little mental exercise when I'm going through and talking about the conditions, and I want you to put yourself there and see if you maybe you piss yourself by the end of this show, because it sounds like that fucking bad. So this is July 29th, July 30th. Okay, they're in the not quite the middle of the Pacific Ocean. They're kind of shading towards Japan, but they're not like particularly close to Japan either. And if you know your World War II history and you say July 30th, 1945, we're getting right to the end of the war. Okay. So the USS Indianapolis, they're out in like the middle of the ocean, not really near anything, And their mission on this particular trip, they were delivering parts for the atomic bomb. Okay. So with that comes in, because it's the atomic bomb, right? One has never been dropped. No one even really knows about the technology yet. It's like the most top secret thing. And and it's not like we have back then, you didn't have these long range, B-52 bombers that are up at almost in space that can fly and refuel. So you need to, by ship, bring parts to like your aircraft carrier, wherever you're taking off from. So they had to deliver the parts of the bomb to be assembled properly so they can drop it on. I believe this one was for Hiroshima, that effectively ended the war. Okay. So with that, you're in dangerous enemy waters, and because it's so top secret, the Navy didn't tell anybody that this is what this ship was doing, and they didn't tell anybody where it was. They got hit by these two torpedoes from a Japanese submarine, and because the nature of the top secret mission, they didn't even send out a distress signal. Okay, so it's just like, we're on our fucking own. And the commander of the ship ended up getting court-martialed for some of his decisions, because he did survive this. But he ended up getting court-martialed. He was cleared much later. He didn't officially get his name and his record totally cleared until 1996. But he was brought up on 2 charges because of what happened with this. But like I said, no one knows you're there. You get sunk. You get hit by these torpedoes. And it's like you don't even really have time to think. The ship, you've seen the movie Titanic, obviously, right? Where it's like this long, like you're drifting into like a bath, right? The ship just kind of casually goes down over a course of hours. This ship went down at under 12 minutes. So it got hit twice, rolls over on its side. They call abandoned ship, and then it sounds like it did kind of go like the Titanic, where it went up and then down. But the whole thing happened in 12 minutes. So like before you even know you're in a fight, you're in the water, and it's abandoned ship, and there's barely any time to get like they had some lifeboats, but they went, largely went under with the ship and the wreckage. And then same thing, like limited flotation devices, because they just couldn't get to them in time. Not everybody was wearing it. Things went down too fast. You just couldn't. And so you had some guys had flotation, but most didn't. And then the ship goes down, and 300 sailors were lost in the sinking. But that left about 900 just bobbing in the ocean in the middle of nowhere. Okay, so they're just like good Lord. So you're struggling, and you're bobbing up and down, and you're like, some people are like using some floating debris. Some people do have the life jackets, but you're just like in the worst possible position. And back to the thing about how the Navy didn't want anybody to know. They didn't even report the ship missing for 5 days. Okay, so it was like it was sunk. No one even was like, oh, where's the USS Indianapolis? Like, there's nothing. Okay, like nothing. So there was not like any search and rescue missions. There was like just nothing. So some of the conditions here, okay, imagine like, because it's middle of summer and they're over the northern hemisphere line, because they're up like kind of north of Japan, or like kind of perpendicular rather with Japan, like that line of, I always get latitude and longitude mixed up, but you know what I'm saying? Like they're just east of Japan,
yeah.
But like call it like 150 miles or something like that. During the day, the most intense, unrelenting, hot, burning sun. Okay, so you're floating there in the water, but while you're in the water, like anybody who's been in a pool or at the beach a little too long knows what that sunburn is like. Yeah. Now imagine you're doing that, no sunscreen, no umbrellas. You're just in the sun, bobbing up and down, getting absolutely smashed with both like the sun rays and then the reflection up off the water. The most intense sunburns you'll ever see, to the point that people are getting sun poisoning while floating there. They had these like crazy amounts of exhaustion, like heat exhaustion, and then like, just bubbling skin sores from just being in the sun all day, every day. And then this went on for days, this bobbing around. So because it's the ocean and the way that the weather is, it would go from like the most unrelenting, miserable heat of your life to being freezing cold at night. So, and again, I think that's something people can kind of maybe relate to 1%. You ever get a sunburn and then like the sun goes down and you're so chilly? Mm-hmm. Okay. Like that, people, I know everybody has that, like picture that times like 100 and you're soaking wet.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is like another thing that I didn't know, that, everybody gets a little pruny when they're in the water, right? But if you have constant exposure over that period of time to salt water, your skin will actually start to like peel off. So now you're in the water and you're like, you're looking at your hands, and your hands are just like splitting open. Okay, from the salt water, just painful, miserable, absolutely awful. And again, like you're in the middle of the ocean, no drinking water, absolutely none. So you're surrounded by water, but you can't drink it. It's salt water.
Yeah, it's truly the world's largest desert.
Yeah, exactly.
When someone said that to me, like, yep. That's why like it kind of baked into this fear of like,
yeah, yep.
And it's a fact. There's so much water around you, and that's a mind fuck.
Yeah, but like you're getting some in you, so it's like it's dehydrating you further, mm-hmm. and you're just sitting there, and it's like you said, to your fear, like this went on for days. So the blackest nothingness at night of all time, and you're freezing, you're shaking. And no drinking water, very limited food. So obviously they had some food on board. So whatever cans of whatever like came up in the wreckage, people would like scavenger and try to eat, but like almost nothing. And certainly not if you're treading water and floating and you're just there in the middle of the ocean, like exerting all this energy, like you're not getting enough like calories. So when you had all those things combining, people started to hallucinate. And they would think, oh my God, I see an island on the horizon. I'm going to swim to it. So there are all these accounts of sailors seeing things in the distance. I see a boat in the distance. I see an island in the distance. And they would take off, swim for it. And people would be like, the people who were still kind of somehow had their wits about them would be like, there's nothing there, man. Like, stop, don't go. And they would be like, I'm going. And they would take off swimming and never be seen again.
Hey, before we continue, let's take one more quick break because we got to talk about the exclusive ticketing partner of Barstool Sports, and that's Game Time. Game Time is a ticketing app that makes it easier than ever to score last-minute deals on tickets to sports, concerts, and shows, and they guarantee the lowest price. Chief, we used Game Time this past Sunday.
Little Bears.
Yep.
Bear time, because football is like, that's one of those things. Sometimes you just wake up on a Saturday or Sunday and be like, let's go to the game.
Yeah.
And because there's only 8 a year, and if you're going to be getting last-minute tickets, the only place and the best place is Game Time.
I actually used them for Monday. I bought my parents concert tickets to see Eric Clapton.
Oh,
and I think
that's
I might
sick,
go.
actually.
I think I might go. He's playing 2 nights at the UC.
Wow.
So, yeah, if you're listening to this, it's Tuesday. Eric Clapton's playing at the United Center. I think I might go.
Go out there and see the Ferrers.
Some Layla.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Some wonderful tonight. So, go check that out. A lot of great concerts. Obviously, Bears games are here.
Mm-hmm.
Go to Lambeau. We got a shot.
I can't yet.
Yeah,
I can't yet.
I know.
Yeah, but it's Lambeau. I went for the Aaron Rodgers comeback game, and while I hated everyone sitting around me, the place is awesome.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a Sunday night, and that's the game I went to, it was 2018. How naive I was at that point, but it is a great time. Lambeau's like a special Lambeau. Like, I feel like there's not many football stadiums that are like unique and special. That's one of them.
Lambeau's one of them,
and you should go up there. The Bears fans should be loud, and it's worth it. You guys should get on Game Time, get your Bears tickets, because it's going to be. I think it's going to be an okay year where it's going to be fun to be a Bears fan instead of like it's not going to be a chore.
Miserable.
It's not going to be a chore.
Okay. Well, yeah, go do that. Download the Game Time app. Go to the account tab to create a login. Redeem code DOGWALK for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Download Game Time. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, let's get back into the show.
Whoosh. And if that wasn't enough, this is where the Sharks come in. Okay. So I have a quote. Anybody, we can probably splice in the Quint quote if we want. But I have a quote from another guy who was a survivor, like an actual survivor, a real person. He said, we were losing 3 to 4 each day and each night and day. You were constantly in fear because you'd see them all the time. Every few minutes you'd see their fins, 12 to 2 dozen fins in the water. They'd come up and bump you. You'd never know when they were going to attack you. In that clear water, you could see them all circling. Every now and then, they'd come up like lightning, and they'd take a sailor straight down. So they come up and take a sailor straight down. And he goes, one came up and took the sailor immediately next to me. So, and that was like one of the things that they were trying to do is keep in a pack. Okay. So almost like you see schools of fish, it's like strength in numbers. So they would keep in a pack. So they could like try, if one came up, they could kind of try to fight it off and startle the shark. But it was just, they're fighting a losing battle to the point that, like I said, 900 sailors, they think is the estimate, 900 sailors survived the initial sinking. There were only like 365 or something like that survivors of the floating period, because they're all just getting picked off by sharks and like some drowning, some people drowning of exhaustion, some people like I'm swimming for it, but 2/3 of the people who went into the water didn't survive, and a lot of it was sharks. And like there's a quote from Quint, and I've seen a couple other quotes that are similar to this, but the quote from Quint in the movie was like he had this friend who was next to him, had a life jacket on, so he was floating there, and he like went to like wake him up because he was sleeping. He thought he was sleeping, and he's like, hey, wake up. And the sailor who was floating next to him, his whole lower body was just ripped off because a shark got him. And like that was happening. Like, so we were having, just imagine that, like you're sitting there floating and you like know there's sharks everywhere. And then you would hear a scream from over it and like, they got another one. They got another one. They got another one.
Jeez.
And there's just like no hope or rescue in sight. And you're just like, this is how I'm going to die. Like, this is how I'm going to die, is just waiting my turn to get eaten by a shark. And then finally, on August 2nd, there was an American plane that randomly flew over and saw all these guys floating in the water and the wreckage. And they like kind of turned around, like did a less altitude look. Okay, we see them. And they dropped off like whatever supplies that they had on board into the masses. So I think they had some like more life jackets and a couple of like lifeboats, just to try to get people out of the water. And then they relayed their location back to, surrounding Navy boats, like relatively in the area. And they picked up the survivors. Like I said, I think it was like 367 or something like that. But started off with 1,200 sailors, 11 to 1,200 sailors is the estimate of what was on board. Then after the sinking, there was like 900. And then 3 days later, there's 300 and change. And
I'll be honest, it still sounds like a lot.
I think if you're in a group of three, if you think about it this way, you're bobbing in a group of three, the other two guys are dead.
Yeah, but dude, out of 900, like a third is still...
I suppose, given those conditions, but it's...
listen, it's a lot of death, obviously.
Yeah.
But like, it's amazing that those people were able to withstand that and fortunate enough not to get eaten by a shark.
Yeah, and it's
amazing.
It's total like a lottery system.
Mm-hmm.
The sharks aren't like... So they said that, there were people that were injured, and they said initially the sharks were going after the sailors because like they're probably like, this is fucking Thanksgiving,
Mm-hmm. They're probably so confused, those sharks.
Yeah.
Where the fuck are these people coming from?
Right, yeah. And they're just like,
so
fuck,
confused,
yeah. Like, let's go back to that spot we went to dinner last night.
Yeah.
There's plenty of food. So they started off by having the ones who were already dead. And then that was like, supposedly, when that guy, the quote I read, where he's like, they'd come up and bump into you. And they were checking to see if you were like alive. And if you weren't alive, snack time. But if you were, sometimes they would still get you, especially once all the dead sailors were eaten. Mm-hmm. But it was like they would bump you and test you and do this because they're curious. And then it was like, then they would come back and get you. Mm-hmm. So it is, to me, like when you think about that, like I can't even... It sounds like the worst experience imaginable.
1,000%.
Like I cannot think of a word, like even if you were like abducted and getting tortured and like some kind of like craziness, I think that's probably better than this, where it's just like you're in this blackness and you hear screams in the distance and that scream is someone getting eaten by a shark.
Yeah, and like I'll always say this because, like I said, I watched a episode of I Shouldn't Be Alive about a guy who survived. Mm-hmm. Like just floating in the ocean for, I think it was 24 hours, like 30 hours, something like that. And his thing was like, dude, you don't understand. Like you cannot see your hand in front of your face at night.
Yeah.
It's that fucking dark.
Yeah.
So.
And that's what this was.
Yeah.
And then you wake up and maybe you think you see an island and you're like, like you're just, I'm sure there's an element of like, I know I'm losing my mind. Yeah. And that has to send you into like a deeper spiral too.
Definitely.
Like it's just all like, I cannot imagine something worse. Fucking it's unbelievable what people survived back then. Like that's only 80 years ago that this was the reality of the planet. A world war that ended with a nuke, and then these guys are having to survive. Like we have it so easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a wild story.
Crazy
and
story.
So 316 survived.
Is that what?
That's what Wikipedia says. Okay. Sorry.
Yep.
So then, like, what happened to that? Like, do we know? Like, did they get fucking treated like gold after?
I think everybody kind of did to a degree. Like, that was, Japan after the second bomb. officially surrendered. Okay, so like they say, so then like it's like the war is over. So by the time, I'm sure like people have stories and like they were treated well and and whatever, but it's probably not any because it's like, well, everybody survived something. We was in a world war, so I think everybody was coming home rejoicing, all that, because soon after the Japanese surrender, there was the VE Day, or VE Day actually came first. Victory in Europe came first. And then this was like the official end of the war, was when Japan surrendered. So then it was just like occupation and rebuilding, but really send the vast majority of sailors and soldiers home, and that's where it was. So just like I think they probably just went back and lived their lives, like didn't. It's not like they were like, well, thanks extra for your service. Here's like $2 million. Like like it was just like, this is the way it is. You end up being like Quint. I'm going to go kill sharks because sharks killed all my buddies.
Yeah. And what's crazy, too, is there was definitely, sadly enough, but there were people that probably wanted to be eaten.
Well, I didn't want to say this, but I guess there were people who were like just committed suicide in the water.
Yeah.
They didn't say exactly how they would do it, but that was like, they just can't do it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, you're taking that blazing sunburn. You're going through those nights. You're hallucinating.
Yeah.
Like we're dealing with so much that, I don't know.
I don't know how you.
I don't know what goes through your head because it can't be anything.
It has to be hopeless too.
Yes.
And that's like the other thing too, where it's like the fact that like maybe like you said, like the 316 that survived is kind of a lot, maybe given the circumstances, because how you can endure that for 3-4 days without being like, well, if we just make it another day, it's like, well. Another day is another day. Day of this.
Yeah, exactly? Who's to say anyone's going to come?
Right.
And
they knew where they were. It's not like they were in like a major seaport lane.
And what's huge for them too is that there was 300 of them, like all in the same spot.
Yeah.
Like if they were fucking
on their own.
Yeah, like one person or like a couple people. It's so hard to dig through the ocean.
Yeah.
You can't see shit with the white cat. Like it's
true. That's true too.
It's incredibly hard to see anything.
But if there's only one person, there's probably less sharks.
Yeah.
So you have like, they were having a smorgasbord.
It's a less element that they have to, but you're most likely, you're less likely to be seen.
What do you think would be the worst worst part of that?
See, night would get me.
Night would get you.
There's just something about like not being able to see, like because then like of course like I don't know, like I don't know a ton about sharks, but I assume most of those attacks happen during the day.
Well, I don't know.
They can see better.
Well, I don't think they really care. Like their thing is like they can smell a drop of blood like miles away, and they come and get you, and that's probably why they were bumping into you. Mm-hmm. But I think on the line from Quint, it was like every daybreak is when they were most active. Yeah. So it's like you're praying for the sun, but with the sun, all that comes with that. So there's just like no reprieve. Maybe like dusk, like where it's not super cold yet, and you're away from the sun, and the sharks haven't come. So you're looking at like maybe 30 minutes a day where you can relax. But then it's like even if you have your mind and you're not hallucinating. I think anybody who's like been in the ocean, you're like, what did I, well, like you kind of see things like just like sometimes it's like a heat thing where it like kind of creates like a wave. You know what I'm talking about? Like off the surface. Yeah. And so it's like, was that a fin? Like, I feel like you would just never be able to relax and you would just have anxiety through the roof the entire time, and rightfully so. And there's just no good solution. So.
Yeah. Great book I read. It was called Not Without Hope. You remember those four, I know two of them went to USF, and there were two NFL players. One was on the Lions, one was on the Bucks, and their boat capsized in the Gulf.
I don't think I remember that.
And like they were just like former teammates, and it was these are fucking chiseled, like fucking
perfect athletes.
Yes, perfect athletes, and only one of them survived because the anchor got caught, and instead of cutting the anchor, they tried to bring it back up, and it capsized the boat, and. It's a really good book. It's called Not Without Hope, like I said. But it was a big story at the time, and it's just like the way he describes being out there as well is just fucking.
And I've been told that by that same guy Ben, that the best book about this, if you're interested, is called In Harm's Way. It's by a guy named Doug Stanton. It's on Audible for free. So I think I'm going to add that to my my walk to work rotation here.
That'd be good.
Yeah. So, because I'm sure there's more detail. Like that was like the thing about, I had done the Shackleton book, Endurance. So there was, like I did research, whatever, but like when you have like that longer and you have more firsthand accounts, like the level of detail probably just makes it so much worse,
Yeah, for sure. And that was Nick Schuler was the guy who survived. He played football at USF, and then the two NFL players are Marquise Cooper and Corey Smith.
Yeah. I don't know how I don't remember that story. When did that take place?
It took place 2009.
Okay, so not even that long ago.
No, it was not that long ago. Yeah, I'd recommend the book. It's very sad, obviously, for obvious reasons, but and then William Bleakley was the final guy. Huh. Yeah, very sad, but it's an interesting, not interesting, I should say, but perseverance and the fact that he died. The fact that he lived was incredible. Yeah. But okay, Chief, I think that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that story was terrible.
Horrifying. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, then, everybody. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Make sure you check out that Netflix McAfee doc if you have time. If not, I'm sure you'll still enjoy Thursday's episode. And then tomorrow, Hannah, and
you
Danny.
And Hanny?
Yeah, Hanny. That's her fucking Twitter name, so it always
really?
It crosses me. Yeah. We'll be on for Wednesday. So, all right, that's it for today. Thank you for listening. We will see you tomorrow.